Hello, everyone. Welcome to this session today. I'm here with a special guest, the narrator of Becoming Einstein's Teacher, Kasey Miracle. Kasey, it's a pleasure to have you here today. Usually, when we launch a book, usually people interview me, but I really wanted to interview Kasey, the narrator, because she has such an amazing story. So we're going to start having this conversation here with her. And Kasey, welcome.
Thank you for having me. I'm honored to be here.
Kasey was the narrator that I chose after listening to over 50 auditions to narrate the book. So Kasey is a gem that I found. That was so awesome. So Kasey, let's start first. We're going to talk about you being a mother and the way that you conduct the education of your child. But let's first talk about your career, your narration career. Tell us a bit more about it.
So I actually got into narration. I was a teacher first at an elementary school where my son was going to school at the time, and the COVID-19 hit. And I talked to his teachers and I talked to his therapists. And when everybody went back, we just thought that it was going to be very, very difficult, considering my son has special needs. And it was going to be very difficult for him to go back in that environment. So I tried part-time teaching and then homeschooling him part-time, and it was just not the right fit. So I decided I needed to find something I could do from home. And thankfully, because of COVID, there were so many opportunities at home. So I started looking for things, and every single night I read to my son. And I do all the characters and all the voices. And whenever we play video games together, if the character does not have a voice, I do the voices for him. And we were reading one night and he said, "Mom, you should do this for a living. This would be fun." And I said, "Really?" And he was like, "Yeah, you do all the voices and that's fun." So I actually kind of went online and was like, "Yeah, okay, let's look into it." And I found a coach and we did a 10-day intensive. And the next thing I knew, I was doing audiobooks and trailers and video games, and it just kind of, e-learning, and I just kind of took off.
That's so awesome. So you're inspired by your son.
Yes. Yeah. I want to help others that he has a very hard time reading. He is a grade behind, but only a grade behind. And he has dyslexia. And so it's difficult for him to read. But he loves stories and he loves books and he likes video games. So I wanted to give him, voices so that he could have the full experience without having to read so fast. And I want to help others like him. There are so many out there that, maybe are blind or maybe like him have dyslexia and it's difficult to read or, all the different things. And audio narration helps with that.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So what kind of books have you narrated?
So I tend to stick to what I know right now and what I love. I do a lot of kids books. I have a kids book coming out next month. I'm doing, and I've done a couple of technology books because I used to when I was teaching, I was a computer teacher. So I specifically like tech books for kids. And then I do a lot of the books that things that would help me with Logan and other people, because I want to help get those books out to other parents that are like me.
Very nice. And video games as well, right?
And video, I've done video game voices. I did a video game trailer that I'm super excited about. I do a lot of e-learning. There is a company I work with out of Canada that does an English language learning online, and I do reading for them.
So and I like it. Awesome, Kasey. So what motivated you to read Becoming Einstein's Teacher?
So I read the back of your book and I read the sample that you had given me, and I just knew I was going to read this book regardless. I was going to buy this book and read it, or I was going to narrate it at the same time. And like I said, I really like to help others that are like me or going through what I'm going through. And I really wanted to be a part of that. And when I read the back of the book, I was like, this is my son. This is my story. And I would really love to be a part of sharing this with other people.
Yeah, and what you wrote in your audition really, really touched me because you shared your story with me, and then we got to work together. That's so awesome.
I'm so
So
glad.
you read the entire book.
Yes.
What
Yep.
chapter did you like the most?
Oh, I like so much of the entire book. I'll tell you which one I sat with for a very long time. You know, sometimes you read a chapter and you need to just sit and absorb it. And that was the chapter on AI. If you remember, it's in the very beginning, I think chapter 3 or chapter 4. And I think a lot of people like to put their head in the sand about AI and what it's going to do. And I think that chapter about equipping our children in ways that they can find jobs that AI won't be able to take from them is so important. And that one really just, I sat there and was like, yeah, yes, that's true. We need to be preparing our children for what is to come because it is inevitable. And the chapter about Einstein's, I know his background was peppered throughout it,
Mhm.
but his beginning when his mom was so worried about him because she knew something was different, that that really touched me as well because I was like, I've been there. I when I first took my son to the doctor, the very first doctor I took him to told me there was nothing wrong with my child. I needed to be a better parent. And I
Oh,
was like, so
oh,
I have been there where you're like, no, I know something is different here and I don't know how to help him and I need help to help him. And I've been there.
yeah. I wish every parent knew that every child is different. Every
Every
child
one of them.
is unique and is special. And if we could just internalize that, I mean, there's no such a thing as this child is normal, or
Right.
this child is different, or this child is needs special education. You know, because every child needs a special education. It's
Yeah.
an education that matches their potential to what they can be. So if we could have that mentality in the education system, that would be so great. You
Yeah.
know, we wouldn't be judging, right? Um, children based on their ability to comply with the education system,
Right.
but we would be ensuring that the education system serves those children or adapts to the children rather than the opposite. Yeah,
Yeah. Agreed.
yeah. So the book is full of stories, right?
Yes.
Tons of stories.
Yes.
What story caught your attention?
Well, there was a story from another teacher, and it was in her own words. I think early chapters. And
Correct.
I remember reading it and having to take another moment because she was so frustrated with 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 the way that the public schools and the way that the schools that she was in personally were dealing with children that did not learn the same way as the traditional model. And she was so saddened that these kids were getting almost dismissed, and instead of trying to reach out to them and go, as long as they learn the subject, it doesn't matter how they learn the subject, they just need to learn it. And her story was just so, because it tells everybody that the teachers are not the enemy here. It's older than that, and it's further back than that. And most teachers, I worked at an elementary school. I can say everybody in the elementary school I worked with wants to help the kids, all of them. We even the kids that some would label as problem students, teachers want to help them. And they just need the tools and the permissions and the funding to help them.
Yeah, yeah. The book also in that chapter we have statistics about, teachers get to that point. They're so frustrated that they end up leaving. But at the same time, we have statistics that whenever administration and leaders can support those teachers, they
Yes.
end up staying and being successful in their roles. So we need more of that. We need more support. We need more professional development. We need to make sure that we have a way to support teachers so they can grow in their profession and at the same time support our children that
Right.
is
Absolutely.
that are in the schools.
Absolutely.
But also, Kasey, you telling those stories, but I also remember that you enjoyed one specific story that you ended up picking and suggesting to me to be the sample of the book.
Yes. Oh, yes, yes.
That had to do with that had to do with
Oh,
your
yes. I'm
son.
sorry. I completely blanked. Yeah. Well, I
Yeah.
chose the sample because they asked Einstein and others like him to leave school. And I felt like that moment, and that's why I asked you if you thought that sample, I felt like that sample would be out there, because the moment when the school asked the parents to have their child pulled out of school, it's almost unfathomable to even think about that your child would be asked to leave a school, and yet it happens, and it happened to me and my son, and I think it happens to more and more kids with, you know, special needs and maybe different ways of thinking and different, you know, ways of processing things. But it happened to my son and I absolutely related to that, you know, they had asked, they said, now back then they asked Einstein and them to leave school, because they couldn't help them. But now it's a little bit more polite. I was told by 3 different counties in the very first place we lived that he would never be able to be in normal classes. And this was in kindergarten. He hadn't even started kindergarten. So they hadn't even given him a chance. And they were like, no, he needs to be in the special education classes, and he won't get a regular diploma. And, you know, and I was like, well, can't we try to put him in a normal classroom? And they were like, no, we're not going to do that. So we moved, and we came up here. And the first public school I came to, they tried, and then they said, we're very sorry, but we can't support your son. We recommend a special education school. And then I tried a private school. And after 3 days, the private school gave me a full refund and said, we're very sorry. Your son needs more support than we can provide at this moment. Good luck. Maybe homeschool him. And then I found one school, and it's the school that I worked at. I was blessed both in finding them and in finding a job with them. And I was referred to them by one of his therapists, and she said, give them a try. They have a resource program where they put the students into the classrooms, and then they will pull them out individually when they need it for specific subjects. And Logan, like Einstein, was brilliant in all subjects but the one. My son is the same way. He's very brilliant in everything and has A's in every subject. He struggles in reading and writing. And so they put him into the regular classroom, and they pulled him out for reading. And he passed kindergarten and he passed first grade without having like remediation or anything. They gave him a chance, and they proved to me that he could learn, and that he could learn very well. He had A's in every other subject.
Your child is a genius, Kasey.
Yeah.
It's a genius. He's a genius. No, I know so. I know so because, and also there's in the same sample, people hear that, you know, there's the statistics about studies, right? Specific for Dr. George Land.
Yes.
When he realized, and through studies, a longitudinal study for 15 years, that children, when they're very young, they're geniuses, right? They're in the level of geniuses. He tested that. And then every 5 years he would test again. And all of a sudden, that same child became less genius throughout the years. So it's very interesting to see the impact that the traditional education system, without considering all the differences that each student have, and the potential that each student has, what happens to them if they follow the traditional education pathway. So that's something that people can listen in the sample, right? So you said that you're homeschooling your son.
I am
right?
now. Yes.
Tell us about it. How's the experience?
Well, in the beginning, we weren't sure we liked each other enough for it. I tried to keep him more traditional. You know, we're going to do all of these subjects, and you have to do every single thing by the end of the day, by the end of the week, you know, and we're going to sit here. We sat for hours. I would spend an entire day homeschooling with him. because he just wasn't engaged. It wasn't interesting to him. It wasn't, the subject material wasn't about things that he was interested in. And then I started reading your book, and I started thinking about, okay, if I'm teaching him how to love to learn and to learn autonomously, what I need to do is provide him with subject matters that he likes. So instead of reading the books that were supplied to me through the courses that I was purchasing, I said, let's find books on science. He loves science and plants and animals. I'm going to buy those books. And instead of making him read, and now these books are on his level, and a little bit higher. But they're subjects that interest him, because I think that's important. And that was where he was struggling. And we talked about, we did math with him, and it was, okay, this is why you have to have math. And we would watch videos on how the math that I was teaching him would apply to science. This is how they use this in this career field. And any subject that he's having a hard time with, I'm like, well, how can we apply it to science? Because he loves science. Or specifically, how can I apply it to gardening? Because he loves gardening. And then I got a little bit further along in your book, and you were talking about letting him set his own schedule. And I was like, okay, we'll see. I have tried a lot of things to teach him. And so I sat him down and I said, okay, are the subjects you have to do today. How do you want to do it? And he was like, and he thought really, really hard about it. And he was like, well, I want to do English first because I don't like it, and I want to get it out of the way. And then I want to do science last because I like it, and that'll end my day perfectly. And like the first week, he was choosing and he never complains about it. And these are the subjects we have to do. And, you have to do them by the end of the day. And he's like, okay, we've got it. And now that he is taking ownership of, I set up my schedule and I picked this. And anytime he'll be like, well, I don't want to do it. Well, this is the order you picked it. You want to change it? We can change the order. And he'd be like, yeah, okay. I have so much. It's so much easier. It goes by so fast now. And he is so much more engaged now that he's taking a little bit of his own ownership.
Oh, that's great. But you said that the first time he tried out, it didn't work.
No, well, we tried. I went a little bit beyond that, and I said, okay, not only are you going to get to pick the subjects and the way that they go, here's everything you have to do. You can pick when you do them because mommy's home with you, so we don't have to have a traditional. If you want to sleep in, you can sleep in, and we'll get them, but they have to be done before dinner. And he was like, yeah, okay, I'll let you know. And every occasionally I'd be like, hey, bud, don't forget, yep, I've got it scheduled, Mom. I'm going to do it. Okay. Well, dinner came around and he wanted to play with his grandfather. And I was like, you can't, because you didn't do any of your homework. And he was devastated. And then the next day he bounced up out of bed and he came down to breakfast and he was like, let's do school right now. I was like, yeah, I know.
That's commitment right there.
He was like, I am not going to put it off again. That was horrible.
Yeah, no, that's amazing. That's amazing to see how your son, who is labeled as special needs, he's special needs, can do that. And he did that really, really quick. It was the second day, right?
Yeah.
And he understood the process. And now he no longer complains about the subject or the process that he's going to go through, because he has the ownership of his schedule. He's making decisions. And that's something that we talk in the book.
Mm-hmm.
It's biological. We want that as human beings. We want that independence. We want that autonomy. And as we have that autonomy, it's not like, why didn't you do math? You will never hear from a kid that it's because I don't like math. No, it's because I didn't schedule it right. I didn't I didn't separate my time to do that. And I have a story in the book that talks about it as well. How children, when they take ownership and they distribute in time all the activities they have to do, what happens to them? The shit changes. Yes. It's amazing. It's amazing to see, really. Yeah. We have a chance to work with thousands of students and thousands of teachers in various different countries, and the results are very similar. we empower children, and they take it from there. It's very amazing. That's awesome. So you talked about some strategies. Have you observed any results at all besides, your child being in charge of his own time?
Well, he passed into third grade. So this year he gets to start the next level, and that includes his reading and comprehension. I did not have to help him because you take the online test in order to progress when you do homeschool, and he did it all on his own, and it was awesome.
He has dyslexia. You mentioned that.
He has dyslexia,
but he's reading now, and he's reading now.
Mm-hmm. Very slowly. And he has to sound out some words, but he absolutely is reading.
That's so awesome. So, Kasey, what do you recommend to parents that are homeschooling their children right now?
I say, first of all, don't give up. It's going to be overwhelming sometimes, but I also think try it. I think try the learning one-to-one. I think the more autonomous you can make your kids, not only the better are they going to be in school, but the better they're going to be in life. Because the reality is we are not always going to be there to hold their hand, to help them make decisions, and to help them learn. And if you can continuously learn, no matter what the future holds, you will be okay. Because you can just learn the new technologies, you can learn the new processes, you can learn, and so we need to teach our kids to be teachers. And the Learning One-to-One program is great because it teaches them to be autonomous. And I think that will help parents as well, because I feel like a lot of parents are like me, trying to work from home and homeschool their kids. And the more the kids can do on their own, the more learning, the more, like you mentioned in your book, finding their own materials to help them learn. The more of that they can do, the more time you have off, the more time, to do chores or work or things like that, so that you guys can do your schedules better. And again, the more prepared they're going to be for the future.
Yes. And then there's something that parents can also do if they have children in school, right?
Yeah. Yeah. I always feel like parents with kids in school, it is and we talked about this at the school I worked in. It is a joint effort. It is not just the school. It is the school and the parents at home, the family. And one of the stories in the book towards the end, they were talking about a kid that they had started the learning, you had started the learning process at their school. And he would come home with his homework already done, because he was taking the initiative in class when he had free time to finish his homework, because he knew when he got home, he would have more time to be with his family. And I remember that stuck in my brain, that he was taking the initiative himself after the learning program had been brought to the school.
Yes, that's right. That's right. So, Kasey, it's so awesome talking to you. And I'm glad that we finally have the Audible version available. So everyone, go to audible.com, download Becoming Einstein's Teacher. It's now available, narrated by Kasey Miracle. So you can listen to the book when you're working out, you're cooking, you're driving, and you can also save this video and give us a like to listen to it again, and learn from Kasey how to work with your child at home. And I have a special something for people that watch this video. If you go to our special website, learning121.net/audible, you can subscribe and win an Audible version of Becoming Einstein's Teacher for free. So go there right now, register, and you're going to participate in the next week or so. We're going to give a version of the audio book for free. So thank you so much for everyone that participated today. Thank you so much, Kasey. Congratulations for being a great mother. And I loved your work narrating my book.
Thank you
so much.
Honor.
Bye.